titled Build Your Tomorrow Today, and it will be given by our very own Debbie Hazelton. Please welcome Debbie.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, it's great to be with you all again.
Yes.
Yeah, before service we were having conversations. Thank you. We were having conversations with a couple of people I was about cats and all kinds of cool stuff. I tell you, love my cats. Yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting topic. The topics are chosen and they go across, I guess, the U.S. and maybe beyond the U.S. for all Centers for Spiritual Living. And so when I got this talk title, I thought, oh man, that sounds more like motivation. And motivation is about movement. Motivation is about action. And there's a place for action. I'm more about inspiration. What's the difference? Well, motivation is about movement, and inspiration is about interchange that leads to movement. So it doesn't make one wrong, but I remember when I was on the motivation station, it was my first radio where I wrote groups of features and they were syndicated. I don't know if any of you ever heard of the motivation station. It was WNN, and they had this little ID that they sang, for winners only, and I hated it. I hated that. I thought, that sounds like, well, what if you don't feel like a winner? What if you don't see yourself as a winner, but maybe you know that you're in the game and you're doing your best, but maybe you're not out just to win, because that sounds very competitive. So the station manager wasn't too happy with me. But I wrote a tagline that I put on my features that sounds very much like Unity or Science of Mind. And I said, affirming the winner within you that is always seeking to express itself as you. I'm Debbie Hazelton. That's how I ended all my features. And he, I heard through the grapevine, oh, he didn't like that. Well, he soon didn't want me to continue, but it was a great opportunity, and it was again, sometimes when we know what door we don't want or what isn't our style, we get to know what we do embrace. So there are a couple things in the notes about this talk that were given to me that I went, I don't know, I don't really go for that. But, I don't go for that was a song. but we can find what we do go for, and we can often meet in the middle. So when I'm thinking about why do we need a title like Build Your Tomorrow Today? Well, it reminds me of a little joke that said, today's procrastination day, but I'm going to put it off until tomorrow. Now, I want to say a few words about procrastination, because sometimes procrastination is about waiting for the right time or waiting to find out what it is we really want or need. Sometimes it isn't always about just putting things off, but we know that Miss Scarlet and Gone with the Wind, she was always going to put everything off until tomorrow. So procrastination sometimes gets a bad rap. But this person who had notes on this talk had a long section about how the past doesn't exist and how the future doesn't exist and all there is now. Well, if you go to where Ram Dass is, Des and I saw a little movie about Ram Dass, he has a clock that has now all around the whole clock. It's only now. No matter what time it is, it's now. And so, but, if we say to somebody, well, the past doesn't exist. Now, how do you think those women who struggled with Bill Cosby or anyone else that we're hearing about from the Me Too, how do you think they felt when anyone said to them, you know, you can't do anything about that, that now doesn't exist? When people said the Holocaust didn't exist, how do you think those people felt who carried those memories? How does someone feel who is stuck? And their now is the then. Still, their now is back there. So my feeling is that when we say the now, you know, the then is you can't do anything about the past, it doesn't exist, and, you know, just be in the now, that is often putting a cover over something, and it's a discount. I remember feeling that it as a discount, and it really is a way of somebody saying, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about it. Enough is enough. Well, sometimes we have to go to our own wine barrel and slosh around in that old wine until we're ready to turn it into wine of wisdom. And, you know, that is a individual kind of thing as to when somebody's ready to get out of that wine barrel. But so what can we do if that past is still needling at us? Well, we can work through it. You probably heard me say that I think many of our problems stem from over-processed food and under-processed emotions. And sometimes we need to be able to process what our feelings are, what it is that we're still carrying, because if we don't, it raises much havoc in our own body and in our relationships, in our work. So our past, though we can't change it, it's true, we cannot, but we can use it as rich soil as we build into our tomorrow. Our past can be rich soil, and we can rewrite our story. We can have an impact on changing the whole structure of our cells, the whole message of what goes on in our own bodies as we rewrite our stories, reframing our past, and we can gain tons of wisdom from our past and know what we want to do differently. And that's a good thing. Oh, I don't want to make the same mistakes tomorrow that I made either today or yesterday. Okay, that's a great thing. So when people don't let the past go, why would it be that someone would say, other than maybe they don't want to hear it, why would it be that they would say, come on, get over the past? Well, it has a lot to do with shaping our beliefs. And how many times have you heard people say, well, that's the way it's always been, and that's the way the world works, and I'm basing it on, let's say they say, I'm basing it on all these things I've heard for years and the only thing I've ever known. Any of you might remember the story about the cook that had a ham, and they put it in the pan, and they cut the ends off, and they put it in the pan. Some of you know that story, yeah. And they went back, somebody said, well, why do you cut the ends off? I don't know, my mom always did it. And they go to the mom, well, why did you do it? Well, my mom always did it. And they keep going back, and finally they get really to some great-great-grandmother, and she says, well, it's the only pan it would fit in. But many times we do things like that, and we don't always know why, and we want to, have you ever known people that argue for their limitations? Oh my goodness, I'm not going to change, I'm going to hold on to the way it was, and I don't want to know any better way. Well, that's sometimes somebody that's still in the old wine barrel. But okay, so that's about the past. So today is a gift, and that's why we call it the present. I agree with this, that came out of the notes. So the present, the gift, how do we present ourselves? Remember the talk I did, are you open for business? How do you present yourself as the business that you are and that you offer? So we talk about presence with an E-N-C-E, which reminds me of essence, even though there's another word in another S in essence, or the presence, E-N-T-S, the gifts. And if we look at the word present as present, everything is present. And what would we do differently if we remember, and I think Jesus knew this, that everything we need is present. Everything is already here. So when we worry, what we're really doing is we're pushing it away instead of reveling in the goodness that's already here. So again, if we believe what we want to receive, we give thanks in advance, we act as if, we fake it till we make it, but when we do that kind of thing, I think it's really important that it be backed by integrity. There are people out there, and you know when you're around them, they got the right script, but something doesn't feel right. They're saying all the right things, they got the right look, but you know something they're missing. They're missing a few. Their line of braille is missing a few dots. You know? They're a few pickles short of a full jar. There are a lot of phrases for that are so funny. But anyway, so we can trust in the presence. Now, Dr. Will Coleman, some of you know, and I talked about him last time and does studies with him, and he says repeatedly, if you want to know what you're doing in the future, what you're going to be doing in the future, look at what you're doing right now. So, I want to talk for a few minutes about the dipper in the bucket. The dipper in the bucket. I don't know if any of you ever heard of this, but it's a little parable that I heard of years ago, and I actually put it in my book. I thought it was an anonymous author. Now I have found since it was written by Dr. Donald Clifton years ago. He did a lot of work in this. And he says that we all carry a bucket with us, and that bucket, the size of it is determined by our self-esteem, and the level in it is also determined by our self-esteem, or really what we believe about ourselves, what we believe we're worthy of. So I had a client who was 11, and she said that she carried her bucket, it was the size of a thimble, and she would just let it get a little bit in it, and she'd take it home and lock it up under lock and key. Now, some people know they carry big buckets. A lot of people are afraid to carry their bucket. Oh, I can't let anybody know I want this or that. I would sound way too grandiose if I said that, or if I showed that I wanted this or that. So our bucket is very important, the size and the shape of it. And we know, we talk about bucket lists too, and our dreams, that things we want to accomplish before we leave this plane, this dimensions. Well, this story goes on and it talks about dippers, that other people have dippers, and they can get their dippers into our buckets and take out from us things like criticisms and put downs and things like that. And some people have little dippers and some have big dippers. But I want us to think about our own dippers that we dip out of our own buckets. Because when we use limiting self-language, and when you hear it, somebody drives wrong and they go, oh, where are you going, stupid? Or, man, I am so brain dead today. Oh, man. Maybe none of you do that. Maybe none of you say those messages. Maybe it's only those other people you know. But really, sometimes, even if it's not self-talk like that, it might be a feeling of, oh, why don't I do this right? Well, those kinds of subtle negative feelings add up, and they dip out of our buckets. Whereas when we give ourselves that positive feeling, we fill our buckets. Now, this author says the only way to fill our bucket is to fill other people's buckets. I don't totally agree with that, because sometimes people who say all kinds of loving things, but they don't feel filled up with love themselves. So when we are about this business of filling our own buckets with self-care, with self-love, with feeling the love of inspiration within us and all around us, we can go a much greater way to make a difference in our world. Now, a person whose bucket is full is going to sound very different when their bucket is empty or near to empty. Man, I used to think I had a hole in mine. But when a person's bucket is empty or low, they don't know how to take a compliment. You know, oh, that's a really nice dress you're wearing. Oh, this? Well, what's wrong with the one I wore yesterday? But what about a person whose bucket is full, even when they're stressed? I was stressed at my computer yesterday, and I managed to stay calm. A person whose bucket is full is ready to be more flexible and able to move forward. Now, there was a question last time about what do we do with our wants and needs, because Glenda had said, be very specific with them, and I had said, expect the fullness but demand nothing. So what that little difference is, that I think we need to be specific within ourselves in knowing what it is we want, and then be able to trust. It's like trusting, handing it over, casting the burden, trusting the guides and angels, the source, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, them, whoever it is, to work it out for us. And I heard one time somebody said, you know, when you pray and you really want something, the universe, the being in charge, rearranges the whole universe to accommodate that for you. That's an interesting thought. What if everything gets rearranged just to make things work for us the way we really want or need them to work? But what I think is really important is to say this or something better. And one of my favorite authors, Florence Scovel Shinn, says, under grace in perfect ways. Now, I think one thing that gets in the way is fear of success. Oh my goodness, what if it's lonely? What if I don't know how to handle it? What if I don't know enough? So that fear can be a reason that sometimes people are afraid to go forward. But asking for help. Okay, Spirit, I'm afraid. I don't know if I know enough. Please guide me, lead me, fill me with all of the tools and the talents that I need, and help me know when to use them. Help me to discern. And with that, I think we can move into our future. So what I also came to last night as I was thinking about this is, while we have a bucket that is what we carry, we are also in a container. We are in the container of spirit, our energy field, that is really, we have more than one body. Did you know that? More than our physical body. And we have emotional bodies and spiritual body and soul, and we just expand way out from where we are in our energy field. And so this container is what we live in, our container of spirit source. And so if you just imagine for a moment that this container is filled with all your talents, your tools, with your sense of mission of what you came in to do and be, and it's filled with all of the loving thoughts that have ever been sent your way. It's filled with all of the good wishes. It's filled with all of the help you have ever needed and will ever need. And so it's filled with all the good that's just waiting for you to receive it. The good and the right directions are already seeking each one of us. So I believe that as we are even more fully comfortable, really comfort-able in our own container of spirit source, essence, presence, then we are already. That today is how we move into another tomorrow that becomes another today. So let us say our affirmation that is on the, did I turn my page? What did I do? Okay. Wow. I have it here. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. Okay, our affirmation. I'll say it once. Today, I consciously and powerfully let go of the past and create my life from love. Together? Today, I consciously and powerfully let go of the past and create my life from love. Okay, and let's just have a moment of going in to our own spiritual container. And this container is round because it goes all around us, and gradually as we open up to it, it really connects all of us. But it's round, it's not a box. It's not a box to trap us in any corner. But we know that there is only God. There is only Spirit, presence, essence. And it is holding us, it is guiding us, it is bringing us so that we can plant our wisdom from the past in the rich soil of understanding. And we can be in our today where everything we need is already pre-sent that leads us into our future. And we give many, many thanks because this good is always pouring forth, always, in all ways. And so it is. Amen.
So it is.